kind of an interesting autograph collection property that's oddly located, but really cheap on the AAA rate for some reason.
Oh, nice. So we just had daily getaways for Marriott gift cards, 20% off. I jumped on there to try to buy some and clicked, buy like right away as soon as it was live, and it said they were unavailable. Did you try?
I did. I struck out too. I was sitting there hitting refresh. I think maybe it's because I was in Switzerland. It was too slow, but
it takes longer to get across the pond. Well, I'm here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I don't know where Daily Getaways is headquartered, but I guess it must be maybe on the East Coast, since I know people on the East Coast like that.
I've always scored them in the past. I've never had trouble with it in the past, and that's logging in from New York usually. So maybe that's what it is. I saw the reports of people that got them, and I was jealous. I was like, oh man, I would love 20% off all the time. You can stack it with portals. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
But let me ask you, why do you care? You've got the magic. You have the magic Venture card, Venture One or something, right? That has that deal where you get Marriott or Fairmont gift cards at a huge discount. Why do you even care if you get Marriott gift cards at a discount?
That's a good question, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to infinitely. I mean, I suppose I could, but I probably won't infinitely manufacture the Capital One points for the gift cards. So if I could save 20%, that's still pretty good. But with the Capital One card right now, I have the ability to redeem. I think it's like 62,450 reward miles, venture miles for a $900 gift card, which is great. But I'll go through that. I have a stay planned at the St. Regis Bora Bora this year. And so I imagine that eating there for a couple of days will eat through a $900 gift card. I'm glad, though, that they accept gift cards now. At least I think they do. It says that St. Regis and the different Starwood brands will accept them. Have you tried out one of the Marriott gift cards in any of the Starwood properties yet?
No, I haven't. But trying it out in Bora Bora, that'll be a good test.
Yeah, well, last fall I tried to use one at an old SPG property, and they told me they weren't taking them yet. So, but I saw in the Daily Getaways terms that it said it works at all the various Starwood brands now. So hopefully, but yeah, so 20% off still to me is a good discount. I know I'll eventually be in a spot where I don't have one of those gift cards, because that's the thing with the Capital One gift cards. You have to wait for a physical one to come in the mail. It takes a couple of weeks. So that means I have to actually go through the steps in advance and plan it out. So if I've got some gift cards on hand, that's always a good thing.
Right. Okay. So this week you wrote about flying Southwest to Hawaii. You've been all over the place, but it sounds like you liked it. You liked flying Southwest. Yeah.
No, I did. I mean, it's the same Southwest experience you get anywhere, so it's not really any different, which I'm sure seems obvious to people who take a few seconds to think about it. But on the flip side, really, 5 hours to me is not a big deal in economy class. And most people, millions of people, are flying economy class only out of the ability to generate these miles that I would even consider flying in business class. So really, it's the same as everybody else's economy class seats. Just in the last month or two, I've flown most of the major legacy carriers, and I mean, it's the same kind of seat basically. And actually, it was a little bit bigger. A reader commented just today, actually, to mention that the seats are a little bit wider, and there's just like a little bit more legroom on the planes that they're flying to Hawaii, which again, I noticed it definitely did seem pretty spacious and comfortable. And then when we flew after that, like within the United States, we said, oh, it's not quite as comfortable. But yeah, I don't know. When was the last time you flew Southwest?
It's been probably 5 years maybe since I've flown them. So I don't remember. Do they have in-flight entertainment?
Well, it's only via the app, via the Wi-Fi. So you have to connect to the Wi-Fi, but it's free. They have movies and TV. Actually, the last time we flew Southwest here to Hawaii, I logged into Google Play and I saw I had a 99-cent movie rental. So I was like, oh, great. I'll rent a movie. I rented A Star Is Born. I got on the flight in Southwest and they had A Star Is Born for free with the in-flight entertainment. So, so my mistake, I guess, on that, I didn't even think about the movies they would have. But yeah, live TV and movies, basically, again, the same as everybody else, except for Spirit.
And they have power, so you don't run out of power on the way?
They did on those flights to Hawaii. They don't on most of their planes, but they did have power there. I always bring a battery pack anyway, so I don't usually rely on having an outlet at my seat unless I'm flying in business class anyway. But would you do it? Would you fly Southwest to Hawaii? They flew
No.
from Detroit. No.
Well, I mean, maybe if I had to. No, I mean, you said it's what, a 5.5 hour flight, something like
Yeah,
that.
about that. Yeah.
I would spend like 10. I mean, just knowing me, I would spend 10 or 15 hours online trying to find a first class flight.
Well, from Detroit, okay, because you can fly flatbeds to Honolulu from Detroit. But for most of the, places around the country, you're getting a slightly bigger recliner seat. I don't know. It doesn't excite me to redeem miles for a recliner seat.
I know that's true,
so.
but at the same time, like, I don't know. I like the experience, even regular first class. I like the experience of being served meals, and something about it just makes the time go quicker. And I do far prefer having the seatback entertainment consoles instead of having a prop up my laptop. And then when they come with a meal, if you have your laptop propped up, you have to put it away.
Yeah, that's kind of a pain. That's true. That's true. But I mean, Delta's basically the only carrier that's still got the seatback entertainment, I think, on all the planes, right? I mean, I haven't had seatback entertainment on any of my flights with United or American this year.
Is that right?
Or Alaska, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's basically just
I knew
Delta
American was pulling them. I'm not sure about United.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've had seatback entertainment on any of my flights. So it's like that to me is kind of a thing of the past for the most part anyway, unless you're flying internationally. Again, you get it on Delta because I did fly Delta just a week ago or whatever, and that was pretty good. But I thought Southwest was good. And if you're going to go to Hawaii, if you can connect through Oakland, there's an escape lounge there. So if you've got a platinum card, you can grab some snacks and drinks and stuff before you get on the plane. And and then it was pretty easy. And the number of points that it requires is just, it's the deal. So it seems to me like it's great. It's great for the inter-island flights too, because you're going to save a whole bunch of money on checked bags. That to me it's just a huge savings. I think I showed in the post, like, you're going to save $100 over what you'd pay flying Hawaiian, or what I paid flying Hawaiian just a couple of months ago on the inter-island flight. So I think that's pretty cool. But my wife would always prefer the flatbed seat. So she would rather be flying in a flatbed, I'm sure, but I'm fine with economy. But speaking of wives, I know you said that this week, you're going to now have your wife using just the Bank of America Premium Rewards card, right? 2.62% everywhere. That's it. So how's that going so far? You think that's a good decision? I mean, I'm questioning your logic a little. I'm not going to lie, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it was a great decision. As you know, we're getting 2.62% cash back everywhere with that card, and a little bit more for travel and dining. And it's great because it's a no-brainer. It's like, she doesn't have to ask me for every type of purchase, which card do I use? I know we're going to get good, solid rewards regardless. I mean, we won't get, in every case, the best we possibly could get, but it's close enough. If I think about, like, let's say she spends $1,000 across the course of the year using that card instead of a card that might earn 4 or 5x transferable points. Then we're talking about, if we think about the Bank of America points as being similar in value, we're talking about like a couple thousand points difference in how much we'd earn, and it's not worth the difference to me to make her life more complicated with all that.
That's, I think, maybe the best point on that topic, because when I look at it at first, I think, well, I mean, you're giving up, you could get 2x with the Blue Business Plus. And so the 2x everywhere, you can cash out. If you have the Schwab Platinum card, you can cash them out for 1.25 cents each. Right. So the Blue Business Plus is like a, floor level 2.5% cash back card, right? And then you can obviously do a lot better if you use membership rewards points well, then you can do a lot better. But the point you're making here, I think, is the key point in all this. If you're only talking about a difference of a couple thousand a year, a couple thousand miles or a couple thousand membership rewards points aren't going to make probably that big of a difference in the bottom line. So I guess it does make sense to have an everywhere else card, although I still like transferable currencies because at least you have the possibility of, getting a lot more return out of that. Whereas the $1,000 in purchases at 2.62%, there's only so much you're going to do with your $26.
Right.
So it's
well,
more limited.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't recommend this approach overall to someone who hasn't amassed a lot of transferable points. But right now I'm in the position where my wife and I have a lot of membership rewards points. We're still earning them pretty rapidly, thanks to Ebates. And we have literally millions of ultimate rewards and probably close to 1 million thank you points. So at this point, when it comes to transferable points, I'm not a buyer. It doesn't make sense for me to choose points over cash if it's more than with membership rewards, if it's going to cost me more than 1.25 cents each. So that's my basic thinking on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. You know, when do you get to that point where the cost of points is too much? And I made that argument with a post last year about how we're all buying our miles and points because we're all giving up the chance to earn cash back. So if I'm earning 2 points per dollar on the Blue Business Plus, for instance, and I could have been earning 2.62% back. So those points are really costing me 1.3 cents each, right? I mean, I'm buying them at a pretty high rate. So then Is it worth earning points at all? Shouldn't you go to the travel rewards card then too?
What's that? Oh, did I move?
I shouldn't. Yeah. Have you moved your everyday spend to that card too? And if not, why not?
I have moved my non-bonus spend to that card. I have, yeah. So I've decided, exactly, that I don't want to buy membership rewards for more than 1.25 cents each. So since this card gets slightly more than 2.5 cents per dollar of spend, it's like it would be using the Blue Business Plus would be like buying points at just a little bit above the point where I'm willing to buy them at. So so that's my decision there. I did this week though run into one downside to that, which is I used to always have the Blue Business Plus with me wherever I'd go because that was my everywhere else card. And for that reason, whenever I see an Amex offer that I like, that I might use, but I'm not really sure, I load it onto that Blue Business Plus card. So it's always with me. So I was at the mall earlier this week, which is somewhere I don't usually go, but I remembered there was an offer I wanted to take advantage of. Card wasn't with me, so I couldn't do it. So now I probably could and should load it into Apple Pay or something so that I can, or Samsung Pay.
I don't know. The Samsung Pay, I don't think you can load business cards. So
right. Maybe
I'm not
can.
sure. Can you do that with Apple Pay? I don't know.
I'm
not familiar with one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Oh, that'd be an interesting one. Well, one thing that stuck out at me though, you said that you're going to go for this travel rewards card for the 2.62, or I'm sorry, the premium rewards card from Bank of America for 2.62%, but you said not the zero card, which you could earn 3% on. So you're giving up a little bit there too by not going for the zero card. So I mean, don't you think it'd be worth a little bit of zero card action if you can pull in the 3%?
Yeah, probably if I hadn't already signed up for the premium rewards card, I probably would have said yes to zero. So, the zero card, for those who didn't read my post about it, it'll let you earn 3% cash back everywhere if you either spend $100,000 on the card every year or you refer 4 friends a year. And because I could post referral links on the blog, it would be pretty easy, I think, to get 4 referrals a year. So I easily could have a 3% cashback card. And the truth is, I just don't. I like the simplicity of just having my one everywhere card, and I don't want to add additional things. So the zero card will add the requirement to get those 4 referrals a year. So even though I could do it easily, it's just another thing I have to worry about in addition to, because it's more of a hybrid card. It's sort of like a bank account and credit card. You have to make sure the bank account part of it has enough money for your charges. it just seems like multiple things I'd have to worry about that I don't really want to deal with. But what about you? I mean, it's a attractive card for that reason.
Well,
3%.
it is, yeah, and there's definitely part of me that's considered it. I mean, we've talked about doing the Bank of America card also, but it would require the complication, so to speak, of moving assets over to Bank of America in order to be able to get it. This alleviates that need, so it's kind of attractive on that side, because then I don't have to change anything major. I just have to use the card, and then like you said, I guess from a blogging standpoint, it'd be really easy to get the 4 referrals. I actually have some family members who are of the no credit kind of perspective, where they would not prefer not to use credit cards at all. So I think it actually would be easy for me even to pick up 4 referrals within my own family for the zero card. And probably then easy for them to pick up other folks that are on the no credit bandwagon, to pick up their referrals. But on the flip side, I look at it and I have 2 major concerns with zero card. Number one, two major concerns and 1 non-concern. My non-concern is, you brought up, is it any good for manufactured spending? And of course, you showed from the terms, it sounds like they're going to clamp down on any kind of manufactured spending and not let that fly. On the flip side,
Like
I wonder.
did.
Well, yeah, like Alliant did, exactly, with giving 0% on Simon purchases and things like that. But on the flip side, then I wonder, one of the options to get 3% back is to spend 100 grand a year. Who's spending 100 grand a year on anything other than business expenses or manufacturer spending? I mean, very few people. So, and I can't imagine that Kim Kardashian is lining up for the zero card for 3% back. So, so it would seem to me like their target market of people who don't want a credit card, I mean, the only people that are going to spend enough are manufacturer spenders. So I don't know, maybe they will be hard on manufacturer spenders, or maybe not on moderate manufactured spenders, so it might not be terrible. So that's kind of my non-concern. But my bigger concerns are, I don't know much about zero card. It's taken forever to get this open. And then I got to give them a bunch of my money, to sit in an account. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. And of course, all of us who travel are uncomfortable with using debit cards all the time, because they're, obviously not as secure as a credit card. You could have somebody wipe out your account. And so zero card, it looks to me like you're just funding a bank account, and then you can only spend up to what you have in the account. Concerns me, if somebody gets a hold of the card, what protections there'll be.
I'm pretty sure I remember from the documentation that it's actually a credit card, so it should have the exact same protections, but I would double check that before signing up.
Well, and somebody can take cash out of the ATM, right? So I guess I don't know whether they work that like it's a cash advance or like it's an ATM withdrawal. I don't know. There's too many of those questions that I feel like I have to answer, that I'm not ready to jump in on it anyway. Maybe I would consider it, but I'm not sold. I think I'd want to see it continue to be proven for a little while before I'd get in on the zero card.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the ups and downs with Amex this week? So we had what I think of as a major hit with their Priority Pass. Their Priority Pass used to be really bad, if I'm remembering right, in that it didn't allow guests or something. And then a couple years ago, they added 2 guests, so they put it on par with most other Priority Pass memberships. And then now this week, we learned that in August, you won't be able to use their Priority Pass from Amex to pay for Priority Pass restaurants. To me, that was a major blow. What about you? Do you think that hurts the Amex?
My first thought on it was, it's not a big deal. And I know that Mark Osterman at Miles to Memories wrote a post this week on why he thought it wasn't a big deal. I saw the headline, but I haven't actually read the post, so I'm not sure what his argument was. But I'll tell you, my argument as to why initially, anyway, I looked at it and I said, this is really a non-issue. It's a non-issue to me because I don't ever use the Priority Pass that comes with my Platinum card, because in the past they charged $27 a person for your guests. And so even though they changed that and they allow like the 2 guests now, my mind is so set in the $27 realm there. That I just don't even bother using that one. A, and B, they had the same deal, I think, with the Hilton card for a long time too. Now you get, I think in the Ascend, 10 passes for family and friends or something like that.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean, that it hurts. It does hurt. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there are enough restaurants, and it's a good value when you can put it to use. But I honestly just don't ever use my Amex Priority Pass.
yeah. So here's where it kills me is there are a few friends that I've recommended get the platinum card because they fly Delta a lot, so they can get in the Sky Club, or there's various reasons why some people the platinum card is the right thing for them, and that really bugs me that and these would be people that won't have the other cards that have priority pass. So
Right.
it bugs me that now that when they sign up for priority pass with the platinum card, they're going to get a more restricted version of it.
Well, and it makes it a
Um,
confusing benefit. When they have one kind of priority pass and Chase and
yeah,
Citi handle it differently, it makes it a confusing benefit, and confusing benefits aren't good for consumers, in my opinion. So, then they start to feel like they're not actually benefits at all, even though it'll get you into lounges if you have to wonder why your friend Bob has a priority pass select also, and he can eat at the Timberline Grill or whatever, and the airport, and you can't. I think that's just too confusing for the average consumer to make it a good benefit. It also concerns me if Chase and Citi do the same thing. That really stinks because to me, the value of Priority Pass right now is mostly in the restaurants, because within the United
mhm,
States, there just aren't very many places with lounges you can use. And even internationally, the lounges are by and large so. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are not that good. It's nice if you don't have any other access to a lounge, but I think that the restaurant benefit is a killer benefit. So I'm
yeah, yeah, and it's
disappointed to
it's
see that go.
possible. It's possible, despite Chase and Citi telling some people otherwise, that they just haven't announced the change yet. It almost seems
That concerns me.
likely. It almost seems likely to me that this is being driven from the priority pass side of things. That they're telling all the banks, uh, this is going to be the new rules with this type of membership or something like that, and then it'll sweep across all of them. I hope not. I sure hope not. But
Maybe that's not necessarily a bad theory, because right now I don't know how Priority Pass could even fathom marketing their service to somebody to buy it that doesn't have a credit card, because I mean you'd have to use it so much to be able to come out even or ahead to pay for the actual like cash price of a Priority Pass. But if you add some benefits like these restaurant credits that the credit card Priority Passes don't get, then I don't know, maybe that gives them a vehicle to try
right,
to sell people on memberships. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad theory. I would hate to see that happen, because I think the restaurant trend has been really positive, and I think that's a big kick from Amex, and it's unfortunate because I feel like in the last few years with Amex, there have just been a number of negative hits. I'd like to see them, have some positives that come out too. But between the pop up that doesn't always work and telling people that they're not going to qualify for the bonuses, and this priority pass deval, I think there's just been some things that have stung lately.
yeah. No, I agree. On the other hand, I still think they have the best lounge benefit of any card because they've got the Centurion lounges, which are great. They have the Escape lounges, which I love. Delta, they have Delta Sky Clubs. If you're flying Delta, in that case, you're not allowed to bring in guests, or at least not for free. But it's still a great benefit. So, as far as domestic lounge access, I mean, the platinum cards are still, I think, way ahead of any other cards. But this is a blow. Um,
Yeah. But on the flip side, positive news. Saw
yeah.
today that they just added Qantas as a transfer partner. Are you interested in that? Do you think that enhances the value of membership rewards? Are you ready to come over to the membership reward side from the Chase Ultimate Rewards side? Because I know you're more of an Ultimate Rewards guy, probably, right?
No, actually, I wouldn't say that. I
Oh,
actually think I prefer membership. If I had to pick one, I'd pick membership rewards. But I do love the Hyatt transfer of Chase, so that would be really, really hard to give up. Yeah, no, this is great. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw it is, oh wow, I think Nick's written some posts about how American Airlines flights are cheaper with Qantas under certain circumstances, and so I tried to jump on to test to see what I remember from one of your posts. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. you said it's great because it's cheaper, but it took something like 2 days to transfer from Citi, and so you don't know if your award will still be available by the time the points transfer. So I jumped on my Amex account and tried to link my account, my membership rewards account, to Qantas in order to test to see how fast it moves. But it gave me an error just trying to link the account, so I wasn't able to complete that test before this before our Facebook thing here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great addition because Qantas is great for flying American Airlines, especially now. I guess the British Airways devaluation thankfully didn't hurt American Airlines flights within the United States. They left that one alone, so that's good. But Qantas can be great for other short itineraries where you have to connect, because that's my thing. I live near an airport where I don't fly direct anywhere, really. I have to connect no matter where I go. And so word charts like Iberia and Qantas are much better for me because, I get the ability to connect. And while they have a mileage-based award chart, it's cumulative. So if I fly from Albany to Charlotte to Dallas, they add up the segments instead of charging each segment separately, which is what British Airways does, and causes me to have to pay at least 15,000 miles one way within the United States when I book through British Airways, whereas I could get flights as cheaply as 8,000 miles with Qantas or 12,000 in that mid-tier one way. So that's an attractive option to me for close-in bookings, because then you avoid the $75 fee and you can easily add your American Airlines Elite number to it. So very simple to be able to check bags with if you have a free check bag benefit on one of your American Airlines cards.
Right. Do the points expire? Do you know anything about that?
That's a good question. I don't. And I people often ask about when points expire, and to be honest, I rarely look at when points expire with programs because I just don't transfer in more points than I'm going to use. I transfer them in when I'm going to use them, and if I have to cancel, I figure I'll usually find another use within a year. So I don't usually worry very much about when the points transfer, but I should when the points expire, but I should check and make sure it's not something like Singapore where they expire after 3 years, whether you use them or not. But I'm usually only transferring in little chunks at a time. I don't know. What about you? Do you transfer in more miles than you need? Do you worry about expiration?
Well, the reason I worry about it is because it's happened to me a couple of times where I've transferred points in for a specific award, but then had to cancel that award. So that happened recently with ANA. I didn't have to cancel the award, but I did. And they have that nice thing where you could cancel an award. It costs you 3,000 points, and that's nice. Except just like Singapore, ANA miles. That's very distracting, Nick.
Well, you were breaking up a little bit, so I felt like I had to move a little so I could actually hear you. Better? It is. Now I need a chair, so it's going to be distracting for another minute here, and then we're going to get back to when you're live. Sometimes you have to.
ANA miles expire after about 3 years, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I need to, the clock's ticking for me to find a good use for those ANA miles. And it's not that it's going to be that hard to do. But I don't like having that sort of hanging over my head. But the reason I thought about it as an important question with Qantas
that was distracting too.
Okay. Is if it does take 2 days to transfer to them, people who fly domestically might like to transfer prospectively, just have a bunch of points in there just in case. And so for them, it will matter for sure if they expire without any way to keep them alive.
That's a really good point, because transferring prospectively, in my opinion, doesn't make sense in a lot of situations, but it would make sense, like you said, with Qantas. I'm just going to stand, and we're going to keep it over here. So I was going to try to reset this up, but we're just going to keep it as simple as we can. So anyway, what I was going to say is I usually don't worry too much about when they expire, but like you said, if you want to prospectively move them over because it takes a couple of days and you want to be positioned to move, that makes sense, I suppose. But generally speaking, I would only transfer over when I'm ready. I hope that Qantas ends up being an instant transfer partner. That would be really good. but otherwise I normally don't try to amass too many miles in one program like that. Just because they also devalue is another problem. But speaking of devaluing and amassing miles in programs, I was really surprised today when I saw your post this morning that said that you should the conclusion of the post anyway was that you would probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you would probably credit your paid Delta flights to Delta over Virgin Atlantic.
Yes.
So now, wouldn't you rather have Virgin Atlantic miles? I mean, you can't get to Necker Island with your Delta miles. You can with your Virgin miles. I mean, you need Virgin Silver status now. Am I right? You need Virgin Silver status to redeem for a week on Necker Island. For those who aren't familiar, Greg spent a week at Richard Branson's private island, Necker Island. You should look up that whole series. Take a look at Greg's series where he wrote about that experience. But you need those points in order to go to Necker Island. You're going to take Delta Sky Pesos over the ability to earn Virgin Atlantic?
Yeah, good question. First, I mean, I don't have a lot of paid Delta flights. I usually book awards, and sometimes I use Delta miles to book them, sometimes Virgin Atlantic, sometimes Air France. It just depends which one has the best deal on the flight I'm taking. But the silver status with Virgin, I do have silver status, and the reason I do is I set up my Virgin Atlantic credit card to automatically deposit to Kiva $2,500 a month, and that sort of maximizes the earning benefits of the Virgin Atlantic card, as I wrote about in my post yesterday, It gives me enough tier points to get and keep silver status. So I'm all set there. And as far as if I need more Virgin Atlantic miles than I already have, I'm sitting on a little over 1 million right now. But
so
if
you're
I
ready.
need more,
You're positioned almost. I mean, with all the transferable points you have, you're positioned to get to Necker Island. So when's the next trip?
Yeah, I'm really close. I don't know. My wife's teaching schedule often comes in conflict of when we could go to Necker Island, but also our desire to see so many other places in the world conflict with it as well. So when we have a week free, the decision of whether to go to Necker Island or go to South Africa or New Zealand or something like that, it's tough to pick a place we've already been to, even as magical as Necker Island was. But we probably will.
That is a tough thing. So the whole decision between going back to a place you've been and enjoy, or going to a new place. How do you usually pick your travel destinations? I mean, what is it that inspires you to pick one? I know sometimes I'll find a new hotel or a flight that's available during the times when I need, and so sometimes that actually helps to decide where I'll go next. What about you? How do you decide where you're going to go?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, sometimes it is driven by something like a great deal at a hotel or a great airfare that just says, or a great ward booking opportunity that sends us somewhere new and interesting. Sometimes it's from reading blog posts from you or others that talk about destinations that sound great. So all kinds of reasons. I mean, I don't think we have one particular way. In reality, most of our international travel has been driven by where my wife has conferences or meetings to attend, and I'll go along and we'll make a little trip out of it. So we do a lot of that too.
Yeah, that's nice when you can kind of combine the two, and find a way to be able to do that. So yeah, interesting. I was just curious. I'm going to go back to it again, but we talked just a minute ago. We talked about this whole credit to Delta or credit to Virgin Atlantic, and I'll tell you, when I read your post today, I thought I would still credit to Virgin Atlantic, even though at the end of your post, the conclusion you showed that basically, of course, it's going to vary a little bit person to person, but for most people, it seems like you would probably earn more Sky miles than you would Virgin Atlantic miles by crediting to Delta over Virgin Atlantic. So I think you showed something like, based on the example you gave, you would earn about 28,000 Delta Sky Miles if you followed the parameters that you laid out, or about 16,000 Virgin Atlantic miles if you follow the parameters you laid out. I would choose 16,000 Virgin Atlantic miles over 28,000 Delta miles, like every day of the week, though. And the main reason for that is because of how easy it is to book Delta Saver availability via Virgin Atlantic. I feel like I can find flights within the United States for 12,500 miles one way that Delta's charging 30 or 40,000, literally 30 or 40,000 Sky Miles for those flights. And then obviously other great sweet spots, like I just flew the Delta One suites from Detroit to Minneapolis recently for 60,000 Virgin Atlantic miles. We often see 50,000 to Europe from the United States, again, using Virgin Atlantic miles to fly Delta. So, is it worth it to choose Delta Sky Miles over Virgin Atlantic miles, even if you're earning more Delta Sky Miles? To me, I don't think it is. I mean,
it's a great question. Now, talking to Drew at Travel is Free, he's now like in love with Delta Sky Miles all of a sudden, because he created his Delta Sky Miles calculator and found that despite all the negative press about Delta, they have some amazing bargains like all the time. And it doesn't seem to be tied at all to their so-called sales, their award sales. It just seems to be, this is what they do. They have destinations that cost as little as 5,000 miles one way, and if from your hometown to one of these places, is like that, it has those kind of low fares, then it's great. Now, in my case, that's not the driving force. It's more that Delta miles. So crediting to Delta the paid flights, for me personally, it's more about one, I want my Delta Sky Miles number on the reservation so that I get the upgrades and everything else that I should get as a Delta Diamond. That's probably the number one thing. The number two thing is earning the MQMs from the flight to help me get status ongoing. Now, that's not a big deal for me because of the way I manufacture Delta Elite status, but every little bit is potentially helpful. So it is worth something. And then the miles, we do use them. We do go through them. So even though,
I'm sure you do, because it costs like 80,000 miles to, fly an hour flight. I mean, I have no doubt that you can go through all of the Delta Sky Miles you can possibly earn. It's whether or not you can get good value out of them. Where do you find the best value? Like you said, Drew created a great look at how you can maximize your Delta miles. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's really interesting where you can find some of those great Delta values, but you said you're not finding those out of Detroit. So you're not applying to use of. What are you using your Sky Miles on?
Yeah. So picture this. You have a trip that you're definitely going on. The dates are fixed. You look up the awards. There's nothing available to partners at all. Delta's the only one that flies direct, and you don't want to be flying all around the place. So I might pay 30,000. In fact, I just did this the other day. Paid about 30,000 miles for a round trip that would have cost, I don't know off the top of my head, let's say about $400 cash. So it looks like I'm getting pretty low value per point, but I am getting a fully refundable ticket because of my elite status. And that's something that I value as well, because sometimes, plans aren't set in stone. And so I love the flexibility to be able to change change my mind about the travel for free at any time. I mean, technically it's up to 72 hours in advance, but even that, when you call up as a diamond or even platinum member, that they're usually really easy about waiving that requirement.
So okay, let me make sure that I've got this straight. So you're this is good, because I was going to ask you about manufacturing Delta Elite status, because I've said in the past that airline elite status just doesn't really appeal to me, because normally when I'm flying internationally, I'm using miles to book a business class flight. So I've already got lounge access, and I've already got priority, check-in and boarding and all the rest of that. So I don't see a ton of benefits in having elite status. So actually, before I try to argue with you, let me ask you, what are the most valuable perks? Like, why bother? I know that you spend what, $250,000 a year across Delta cards in order to manufacture this diamond status, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that seems absolutely insane to me, especially when I'm going to then have to use like 400,000 miles that I earned from that spend to, you know, get my round trip ticket to, you know, Fort Lauderdale or something. What are the key benefits of having elite status? Why is it worth being loyal at all?
Well, I mean, it's not the same kind of loyalty when I'm spending on the credit card rather than flying
That's
the
true.
amount required. But yeah, I mean, so keep in mind a few things. I live by a Delta hub. I highly value nonstop flights. I highly value actually Delta because they're, in my experience, so much better to fly than the other domestic competition. So I want to be flying Delta anyway, given where I live, what the routes are and everything. And by having the elite status, I have a really good chance of flying first class, even when I've booked economy. If I'm not in first class, I'm at least in Comfort Plus, which does give you more leg room and some extra snacks. I mean, it's not a huge leap over economy, but it's still something. And then there are upgrade certificates. So at Platinum, you get regional upgrade certificates. So that helps your chances of flying in first class when it's most important to you. So if I'm flying, you know, a 4-hour flight, I'm definitely going to apply my regional upgrade certificates. And then at Diamond, you get global upgrade certificates, and those are just crazy valuable because, as you know, you could buy any the cheapest Delta economy flight, international flight, and apply the certificates to get upgraded to business class, and that to me is crazy valuable.
I'm going to argue with you on that. I'm gonna say it's not valuable. I'm gonna say it's not valuable because, all right, so you have to buy the cheapest Delta fare, right? So let's take Europe as an example because that's a popular destination, right? So your cheapest round trip economy class fare to Europe is going to be what? Let's say you get a smoking deal at maybe $350 round trip. Probably it's going to be more than that, right? Right. So let's
will be more than that.
probably much more than that, but let's say 350, okay, because that's a good number for me.
Okay.
So 350, and then you're going to apply your upgrade certificate, so you'll end up getting business class for 350. On the flip side, you could manufacture spend at the grocery store at U.S. supermarkets with a card that earns 4, membership rewards points per dollar at the grocery store, and so you would need to earn 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points, which is a transfer partner from Amex membership rewards. Often there are transfer bonuses, but even if you don't have a transfer bonus, you're talking about manufacturing $12,500 worth of spend in order to get that same business class experience, right? So you're talking about a cost of for every 10,000. Figure maybe your cost is like $100-ish in manufactured spending costs.
So you're absolutely right. If I could always fly on saver level awards, then it wouldn't be worth it. The truth is, so, I mentioned earlier that I'm often traveling with my wife who's flying for business, very specific dates. We're going in and out of specific destinations. And so what I do each time that I go with her is I do look first to see, can I get an award? If I can book round trip to Europe with Virgin Atlantic for 95,000 or 105,000, whatever it is, miles, I do that, and I have done that. If not, then I look at the cash price, and if the cash price is low, I'm gonna buy the cash, ticket. Often I'll use Ultimate Rewards to pay for it at 1.5 cents value, and then apply my global upgrade and get to fly business. So
that's a smart way to do it. I mean, that makes sense because then if you're using your your ultimate rewards at 1.5 cents each, or membership rewards, you could be getting almost that much too with the rebate on the Business Platinum card, the 35% rebate on points. Then you could basically be getting 1.5 cents each. So then, even if your flight is, $750, you're talking about spending about the same 50,000 miles, and then using your miles, 50,000 transferable currency points, and using your upgrade certificates. It's a good strategy, I guess. I argued a little bit on the other side, and I feel like I still am not motivated to pursue elite status because I don't live in a hub like you do, and I don't have that situation where I have a locked in dates where I have to fly on those specific dates. I never have been in that situation, but I know many people are, so I can see where that certainly might make sense for some folks. The problem, though, on my side is that my wife would never agree to booking a flight where she's booked in business class and I'm hoping that an upgrade clears so I can sit next to her. Like, that just wouldn't happen in my household. I don't know. I'd have to come up with a plan where we're going to have to connect then so that we can fly sitting together and not fly direct.
Yeah.
So I guess, we have different values on that. So that,
actually, I mean, if I'm paying cash, so is my wife's trip is almost always paying for a coach and using the upgrades to get into business, because it's the coach fare that's reimbursable for her. So
that makes sense.
Yes, we can specify that we need them both clear. I think they'll usually do that.
And in your experience, do they clear a good amount? I mean,
we've been really lucky.
Status. What do you think?
Yeah, so we've done mostly the I guess less valuable of the upgrades, meaning we're going from Detroit to Europe most of the time, and as opposed to going to Asia or South Africa or something like that. But they have cleared 100% of the time for us. Usually, often they clear at booking, but one time one of my wife's upgrades cleared at the gate, but it's usually before that. On our flight to Japan, ours didn't clear. We got on the airplane, and then some people missed their connection, and then they cleared. So the flight attendant actually stopped us on our way back to our seat in economy, in premium economy, and then we got to go up into first. But that was more of a quirky situation than what you can expect. So my understanding is that upgrades don't clear as often on flights to Asia, and certainly not as often and on the flights to Australia or South Africa that are really, really hard to get.
Yeah, those can be tough. But so then, if I'm an Alaska Airlines member, then, so because right now we wrote a post this week about how Delta is matching Alaska mileage plan members to higher levels of elite status than normal.
Wow,
so if you match soon, if you match, what is it, by June 22nd, I think it was, then you an MVP Gold member from Alaska could match to Delta Platinum. Is that like a no-brainer? Is it a good decision, bad decision? What do you think?
Oh yeah, if you're going to be flying Delta at all, and you have that MVP Gold status, I think it's definitely worth doing. Platinum is a good, very good status to have, and it'll let you book awards on Delta and make changes or redeposits for free. The upgrade chances are much higher than having gold or silver status with Delta. So, I think
the timing is a little rough, though, right? Because I mean, if you're able to wait until July 1st, then great, you'd end up with Delta status for a lot longer. So you could, if you're an MVP Gold member, I guess after June 22nd, you'll only get Delta Gold status instead of Delta Platinum. But if you wait until July 1st, you'll keep it until January of 2021. So, with that, is the bump for Platinum worth enough to give up an extra year of Gold?
That's a great question. Maybe not. I mean, so yeah, I didn't really realize that we had that trade-off. Yeah, I mean, to wait until July and get a year and a half of status, I guess it depends how much Delta flying or award booking you're going to do before the end of January, I guess, is when it would expire. That's the end of their elite year.
Yep.
Um, or whether you would meet the challenge, right? Isn't there a challenge associated with
There
it? Where
is.
you
There is a
platinum?
challenge. Yeah. Yeah, of course. So yeah, if you're not going to meet the challenge, then I don't think it's probably, well, I don't know. If you're not going to meet the challenge anyway, then maybe now you might as well, if you have some flying to do or award booking or whatever it is that you'll benefit from having the status, maybe it's worth taking it now so that you get a higher level of status. You get platinum instead of gold. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, if you're not going to meet the challenge, then I guess I'd wait until July 1st, and then hopefully you can meet the challenge for gold and keep that for a year and a half. I think I'd rather do that than have 3 months of platinum. Yeah,
I gotcha.
most
Okay.
likely.
Well, I wonder.
That's a
So I
tough
didn't
question.
realize that even until January, that's after meeting the challenge. So if you don't meet the
It's
challenge,
after meeting it.
how long
Three
does it
months.
last?
3 months.
3 months.
So if you were to match today, you'd get
Yeah.
platinum status. If you're an MVP gold member, you'd get platinum status for 3 months. If you're only an MVP member, you're only going to get Delta Gold. If you wait until after June 22nd, then you'd really want to wait until July 1st, because status matches from July 1st on are good through January of 2021. So you would get a year and a half. The difference is going to be if you're an MVP member, you could get platinum today, but if you wait until July 1st,
Yeah.
you'll only get Delta Gold, which of course
So
also means that your challenge is going to be less. You're less of a challenge to meet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough decision. I don't know. Maybe meeting, I don't remember what the challenge requirements are, but maybe meeting them would get you darn close to gold status anyway for the next year. I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's something to consider.
that's a good one to consider.
If you're thinking of doing the challenge, of whether do you think you would earn enough to get to qualify for gold for 2020, and then if so, then yeah, you might as well do the platinum challenge. Otherwise, yeah, the gold one does sound better if it's going to last longer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in my case, I think I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't do it either way, because that would mean I'd have to credit Delta flights to Delta, which is not something that I really want to do. Rather put them on Virgin Atlantic. But of course, I don't fly a lot of paid flights either. My other issue is Alaska's got a great program. I'd much rather be earning Alaska miles. The only way I'd remotely consider it is if I had a bunch of Delta trips coming up, like you said. Then I'd probably consider it. The flexibility with award bookings is nice, and I can see why it's a valued benefit of status. But there's so many programs out there that have cheap or low fees to change or cancel that I usually look at award tickets as something that's inherently flexible, because I only book usually with programs that have flexible change and cancellation policies, unless I know my plans are set in stone. I usually avoid booking with most of the American carriers because they do have such terrible change and cancellation policies. The value to me in having a transferable currency is I can pick and choose those airlines that have really good change or cancellation policies. I just had to change one on ANA. It was a month ago or so, last month. Yeah, my son was a little sick, and so I wanted an extra day for him to kind of get a little bit better before we took the flight. And literally, like 24 hours and 30 minutes before I was scheduled to take off, I got through to an agent and I changed to a flight another day later, and it didn't cost me anything.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's right. And that's something we should actually think about putting together a guide to change fees. Because I think that's crucially important. That's something I think about when booking things, when my plans aren't set in stone, is how can I book this in a way that it won't cost me an arm and leg if I have to change it. And so
that's one of the primary reasons I'm interested in transferable currencies, is because I want that flexibility. So if plans change, we can change it. I mean, that to me is a really
I just lost you, Nick. Oh, you're coming in and out. You know what? Let's call it a day. I hope you have fun with the rest of your trip in Switzerland and wherever you're going beyond there. I'm gonna sign off. I hope everyone enjoyed our first Facebook Live broadcast.